Hello, everyone, and welcome to this book chat episode. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. I've snuck a few reviews into some of my other segments on this channel from Shauna's desk. This particular video segment was inspired by a prep assignment that I had this week to help a young student of mine with an assigned reading of his. And if you're in middle school or high school, you may already be familiar with it, or you could be like me and be a little late to the party. I knew about this book, but I uh, hadn't bothered to read it. I had shied away from it, as I do a few of these. This is a picture of the Kindle edition of the Giver Quartet, actually. The Giver is the first in a quartet of books by Lois Lowry, the American author. It usually pictures an older man on the cover with a thoughtful look on his face. This volume is a combined volume of the four books: The Giver, Gathering Blue, Messenger, and Son. And I haven't read the other three yet, but I wanted to come and give you some thoughts on The Giver itself. The Giver was first published in 1993, and according to information online that I've read, was inspired in part by the author's father's experience of dementia and gradual memory loss with Alzheimer's that came with it. And she started thinking about memory and how memory is integral to our experience of the world and our legacy that we leave behind, and what that would be like if we could preserve that somehow in our society. So she started thinking about that, which is an interesting concept. The current novel under discussion focuses on Jonas, our young protagonist, who lives in a society that at first you think is pretty idyllic. You might think at first that it's pretty utopian. And I'm going to come back to that distinction of utopian versus dystopian in just a couple of minutes. But Jonas lives in this place called the community. It's not really specified where it is, but it is a society that is highly controlled, where people are assigned jobs by the elders as they grow up. They watch what the kids do, where they volunteer, what kind of aptitudes they have, and they assign them jobs in the community based on their aptitudes. The elders are always right, and they go into great deliberation to assign those jobs. As you come further in the book, you start to see some things that are more and more disturbing about the way the society runs. Jonas's father is assigned a nurturer, so he's responsible for helping to take care of the babies in the community. So what happens is this society is run in such a way that the people in the society apply to have children, and they apply to be parents, and they're given a child, and they can have up to two children, but not at once normally. And they are assigned a child who's then given a name at the naming ceremony, and every year thereafter, the child has sort of a milestone. It could be, they get their names when they're first introduced to the community, and then I believe it's when they're 7, they get jackets with buttons on them. When they're 6, they don't have buttons on the front because now they have more independence. When they're 7, they get their first bicycles when they're 9 years old. So you do have that sort of marking of time in that sense. But you start to see, the more you dig into this, the more you start to see that there's things that are really wrong with this society. But the main focus of the book is that Jonas's time is coming when people turn 12. They go into this area where they're assigned their particular job. And when Jonas goes into the auditorium, they're calling numbers and they skip him. And he has this sense of consternation because when you get skipped, that normally means that you haven't completed the required number of hours, volunteer hours that you need to be a member of the society, and you are then up for release, which is a euphemism for being killed in a humane way and eliminated from society. However, Jonas is not eliminated. Jonas is given a special job that's only given to one particular member of the community at a time. Jonas is told that he's going to be the receiver of memory, or simply the receiver. And as the receiver of memory, he doesn't understand this immediately, but he will hold all of the memories and all of the learning of the community itself. So he'll hold memories of war, of pain, of suffering, poverty. He'll also hold memories of things like sunrises and rainbows and snow and other birthday parties and Christmas celebrations and different things that mean something to the community. And you begin to see that this high focus on conformity and order, which you initially see for about a third of the book as desirable. You see a well-ordered society. You see people who are getting along. You see a lack of crime. But you start to view that as sinister because you also realize as Jonas commences his training with the giver, who is this elderly man who's not very elderly. He's elderly looking, but he's not as old as he looks. As Jonas goes through his training, and we see some glimpses of it as readers, that the people don't have real emotions. They have very superficial emotions, even though there's a ritual by which families discuss their feelings every night. And they try to work through those feelings. So you have that notion, and then you have the notion of no lying because lying is forbidden, and you have the notion of work and doing your work and not questioning what the elders and what the society said. So there's an emphasis on that. A couple of things that I found interesting in this particular society and in Jonas's family are that his father is assigned the nurturer role, and he's said to be very good at it and enjoy it very much. He's very skilled at it. The mother works for the they're basically like their Department of Justice. So she has the high-end sort of legal job, and the dad is a nurturer, which is kind of an interesting supposition of traditional gender roles. That's not always true, but it is true in Jonas's family, which I found interesting. And Jonas seems to carry some of that with him. There's a particular part of the book where Jonas's father comes home, and there's a baby that's been born or crafted, because there are birth mothers whose job it is to reproduce children for 3 years, and then they go to the labor camps until they can no longer labor and they're released. So, but the second half of the book, Jonas begins to realize how undesirable this society is, and he then makes a run to get away. If you haven't read it, I think it is worth reading. If you are somewhat sensitive, or if you're younger, you may find certain parts of it harder to read. So bear that in mind, but I didn't find it to be as violent or as jarring as something like The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, or the Divergent series by Veronica Roth, which I think would be interesting read-alikes for this particular quartet. I think there are some common ground there, but to return to a couple of the points that I wanted to make, in the first part of this book, you would be forgiven if you thought this book was about a utopian society. That is a society that is governed by a certain sort of perfection, and it's a depiction of a perfect society, a good place, an ideal place to be. Interestingly, the term utopian was coined by Sir Robert Moore in the 1500s, and it meant no place in Greek. In the original Greek, utopia with a U was classified as a fictional no place that was an ideal place. But in our current language, utopia means a place of perfection. But the way the switch came about is because there was an interesting play on words between the words utopia with a U. This originally in Greek means no place. It's a place that doesn't exist, but that is idealized and when described in great detail. And this word, utopia, which this word in Greek comes from two words that mean good place. So Moore, when he originally wrote his book called Utopia, top one, distinguished it from this word, utopia, also pronounced utopia, at the bottom. And the reason that I bring this out is that Lois Lowry has created a no place for us that is not a good place, but it seems like it is. It's actually a dystopia, which this is translated as a bad place. Not translated, but in the original meanings, the etymology, the history of the word is bad place. I just found that to be interesting. But looking at the giver as a part of the quartet, I thought that the giver had some very interesting things to say about society. It is very disturbing that there's a lot of conformity in this book, which is another hallmark of the society. Sameness is enforced, and it's genetically sort of baked in to the way the society works. They will not allow, the elders will not allow two babies that are identical to be born. So what happens is if two identical twins are born through the birth mother, one of them is given up to be released, basically killed, by giving them an injection through the skull of a drug that kills them instantly. So there's things that recommend this as a dystopian type of environment. There's another place where there's a sense in which, you know, the people can be healed from their ailments through the application of medical knowledge. Again, through the communal will of society. So there's issues of eugenics, which is sort of picking and choosing the people that you want to be part of society, and breeding for the best. Survival of the fittest is definitely there. As I said, selective removal of undesirable citizens is also there. There's a lot of disturbing elements to this book. And as Jonas is wrestling with his role, I'm going to let you discover what happens to Jonas and to his charge, Gabriel, in this book. But I think the book is well done overall, and I did want to point out that it is a dystopian for the most part. It has close parallels, as I mentioned before, with the Hunger Games, with Divergent, with even a dystopian like 1984 in the whole newspeak, new think kind of communal, very big brother is watching you sort of thing. But not, it's in this book, it's much more of a benign watching for the most part, as if the inhabitants are children who need to be looked over, and that is largely because they have been conditioned that way by science, and their society has lost color, lost individuality, lost a certain respect for life, lost individual connection, and lost memory, which is why the memory of what actually did go on is so important. And that's about all I have to say right now on the Giver Quartet. This is the first book in the series. I hope to do additional videos on the other three books, and I hope to touch more on parallels with some other dystopian fiction that you might be familiar with. But The Giver by Lois Lowry, definitely a read, definitely recommended. Take care, everyone. And I will see you in my next video, where hopefully we'll talk more about this series, but I will be bringing in additional content over the coming weeks. So if this does become series, Lord willing, I will put it on a separate playlist for you, for those of you who are interested in my reactions. Take care, and I will talk to you very soon. Thank you very much.